moved to our instructional session. Superintendent, would you like to introduce it for us?
Yes, I'd like to call Ms. Abernathy to come forward and share with the board an update on social emotional learning.
Good afternoon. We are going to open this session just with some background information, and then the best way I know how to explain the work that goes on into our schools with you is to showcase some of what's happening in our schools. So we have several guests with us tonight. Joe Percival is Associate Principal at Oldham County High School. Bethany Nader is Counselor at LaGrange Elementary. Andrea Carter and Katie Ackert are counselors at North Oldham Middle School. And Paula Moore is counselor at the Arvin Center. They're each going to come out and give you a snapshot of what this work looks like in their building, where they are in the process of implementation, and then at the end, we'll be able to answer some questions if you have any questions for us. One of the things that we know is over the past several years, we have talked exhaustively as a district about the growing concerns of the mental health needs of our children. We've worked with that. We've added resources. We've worked on how we align those resources to make sure we're maximizing what students get when they're struggling. But when the pandemic hit, we really looked at the impact of the social isolation on our students, very unnatural situations. And in doing a lot of research, we looked at what are the ways that we can start maximizing the recoupment of some of those losses for our students and support them through that process. This is something that we had been working on for several years before. The pandemic really kind of tweaked our timeline a little bit. So I'm going to talk back through some of what that timeline looks like in the past, what led us to where we are now, and then what that looks like for the future. So as we look at a comprehensive model of school mental health supports, we look at that happening in layers, very much like we do our academic interventions. The first layer of that is that all students benefit from positive behavior intervention and supports, from social emotional learning, and a positive school culture. And all of those things really go hand in hand. The work that is done with positive behavior support, school culture, and social emotional learning is very unique to each school community. And that is the one thing you will hear from each of these highlights today, is that every school has embraced this in a way that wraps around their school community, where they are now, where they want to head in the future. The other layers that we've worked on across several years are that some students benefit from some additional supplemental supports and behavior interventions in small group counseling or short-term counseling support individually with a counselor or other mental health person. And then we have those students whose needs rise above that, and there's more intensive supports that have to be put in place. And that's where we've wrapped around more frequent behavior interventions, more support from a school counselor. We start layering in support from our school psychologist. We use our team of mental health consultants. We have our wraparound services that wrap around families, and then we connect families and students to resources within the community. In the past, when we've done instructional sessions, those are the things we've updated you on, which is why I'm really excited today that you get to hear about those supports that are happening for all students and how we see the impact of those. Just for a little background, sorry, I got a little trigger happy there. Social emotional learning is something that has evolved and grown nationally over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. It's existed in some form beyond that, but what we started to look at is how we can maximize the impact of that. At the same time, we're diminishing barriers for some of our students that really struggle in this area. So social emotional learning looks at helping students form healthy personal identities, manage their emotions, and achieve goals, set goals, focus on what does it take for me to be able to reach my personal goals, looking at the relationship skills of having empathy for others, building and developing relationships, and that spans personal relationships, and also when we look at employability, how students go into the community, and are they able to navigate relationships on that level as well. And then finally, really looking at accepting responsibility and making decisions for themselves. CASEL, which is the Cooperative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, is the national organization that brings all of this together. And what we have here are the 5 broad areas that you will hear encompassed in the work of these schools, which is helping students raise self-awareness, understanding their own emotions, thoughts, and just how their actions influence their environment. Self-management is dealing with those emotions and their behaviors and how they approach different situations. And then we move into some relationship skills. So just social awareness. How do they engage with others? Specific relationship skills. And then finally, responsible decision-making. How do they take that self-awareness, their understanding of their impact on the world, the goals that they have for themselves, and how to they make decisions that benefit them in achieving those goals and being a productive community member. And so you'll hear themes of that as we talk through the sessions. The other thing that we really wanted to put out there is the benefits of this program. And as you can see, there's been research on this for a number of years. I like this research study because it gives us a couple of key points. This is not something that is brand new to the majority of our schools. It has existed in some form or fashion for many years. But what this data shows you is what boost a school gets when they do an intentional SEL program instead of just lower level, not as coordinated efforts. And you can see in green, those were schools that were doing things regarding SEL. But then when they went to a structured SEL program that was very intentionally designed, you can see the acceleration of several things. In that skills, just general academic, personal skills, 57% more gains in how students were achieving with that. If you look at, it breaks down their academic performance, and schools have shown immeasurable growth. 27% more students benefited and demonstrated higher academic skills. And then it breaks out social emotional distress, their general attitudes, and also the reduction in how they handle conduct problems. So that goes into that decision-making and that emotional regulation and being able to manage themselves personally. So as we look at that, as we've worked with the counselors in all of our schools over the past 4 years, we've looked at how do we increase the intentionality to bring about some of these results in our building, and then how does that fit at the elementary level, at the middle school level, and at the high school level. The other thing, and I think this is so important because as much as the pandemic has really put stress on our students, it's put stress on our staff members. And the one thing that is through all of the studies on social emotional learning and its implementation is it really does boost teacher relationships with students, teacher confidence in their abilities to engage and work through that, and teachers report a higher sense of satisfaction as we get into that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk by each grade level about how that applies and where we are in this implementation. So we're going to start with elementary. Elementary is further along in implementation of this because we did start there, and the elementary schools adopted a curriculum several years ago, the Sanford Harmony curriculum. That's what they started with. The one thing we know about the evolution of this process is that we start at one point, but we're continually reflecting. So as we got through implementation of Sanford Harmony at different schools, schools identified there were gaps in what that curriculum did for them. So we've started layering on additional supports to fill some of those gaps. So it is right now, you'll hear about Meet Up, Buddy Up, and class meetings. It is integrated into the classroom setting. So it works on classroom culture. It's an extension of the school counseling program. It's what some of our schools were already doing on school culture building. The big thread also is that all of this focuses on developmentally appropriate skills. So we're working on what does a kindergartner look like from a social skill perspective? How does a third grader look different? And then when we move into middle and high school, and all of those parents, and I know we have middle and high school teachers in the audience, we know it looks a little bit different with our middle schoolers and high schoolers, but there's still gaps that come in with that adolescent development that we want to make sure we're fully addressing with our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Bethany Mader for LaGrange Elementary and have her show you what LaGrange is doing with SEL. And Jacob.
It's okay.
Jacob Jesse likes to make a grand entrance. He is also counselor at LaGrange.
Hello, my name's Bethany Motter. I'm one of the counselors at LaGrange Elementary.
Jacob Jesse has just introduced.
And we're going to talk a little bit about how we've integrated SEL as a whole school and also a whole community approach at LaGrange. So it starts with our staff, like Mel said. We are working to foster the character traits and SEL skills in our staff members. We do that through integration at staff meetings where staff have challenges to practice the month's skill. School-wide, we highlight our SEL themes in our announcements. So we live stream our announcements and we include things like breathing exercises for the whole school. We also have integrated this into our assemblies and spirit days. For the home connection, we're sending home monthly letters that highlight how parents and families can talk about some of these skills at home. There are examples of ways that they can play games and do different things with their kids to foster these skills. Guidance is offered through the counselors. We go into classrooms to offer lessons and activities that relate to the month's theme. And then at the classroom level, the teachers integrate SEL through morning meetups and movement break activities. And we'll show you a little bit of what that looks like.
All right, and here, these are the character traits that are all part of the Character Strong, Purposeful People at the elementary level. So these are all the character traits. We didn't pick and choose. This is what they rolled out, and this is what we use every month. The only thing that I will add is that right now, the elementary level, we are kind of doing them on our own. Like, this is what we've done currently on this schedule, but all elementaries in the future will align. So if a kid moves to another school, they will still get that lesson on that appropriate timeline. And then was there one other thing regarding that? Okay. And so now we're going to show you some examples of some of these activities that we're going to have. So here's one of the staff activities we did at a staff meeting for the month with the honesty trait. And it just really made teachers reflect and be able to look at these questions and then kind of think about how they might improve in the future or how they respond to situations and how honesty is important. All right, and now, since we are in elementary school, we're going to demonstrate what we do on our morning announcements and also through guidance. So, Ms. Mott, are you willing to participate?
I'm willing.
All right. So this is one of them. So place your hands on top of your head and interlace your fingers. Breathe in through your nose as you raise your arms, inflating an imaginary balloon. Release the air in the balloon, pursing your lips, exhaling slowly, lowering your arms, and making the sound. You had to do that. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we've integrated at the school level. So because there are monthly traits for character, we have weaved that into our recognition system as well. So teachers get to nominate students to receive awards, and students are recognized monthly for those character awards. So it really makes those character traits come to life because we can discuss like what it looks like to show respect, or whatever the trait is for that month. This is, again, just to focus on our home connection. So I talked a little bit about the letters that we send home. We also offer parent events. So these are in-person opportunities for parents to come and connect with us on the counseling team and other members of the mental health team. We've done counselor coffees where we talk about different skills that you can do at home and like creating a calming space at home, and how to connect with other mental health resources in the community. Classroom guidance. So
Can I ask you a question
You
real
may.
quick about the parent? When you have some of those parents, I know you probably just bring the parents in. Do you have any where you bring the kids and the parents together?
yes, so because of COVID, that's looked a little bit different. But like, for example, 2 years ago, we did do a night where we had parents and students come in together, and we actually did like a make and take activity. So it was on working on building routines in the home, and so kids were also like connecting their goal for how they were gonna build their routine in the mornings, and then parents were creating the activity with the students so that they would then take it home and implement it in the home.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, on to guidance. So we facilitate guidance in classrooms on a monthly schedule. Right now, we get to go into classrooms 2 times a month. And the point of this is to apply the skills that we're integrating into the building. So in your packet, there is an example of a lesson from guidance from the month of cooperation. And with cooperation, we also talk about bullying prevention. This is a picture of some students who are engaged in a cooperation activity. They had to create a pyramid with these cups without touching the cups. So they had a little rubber band and yarn, and the only thing they could touch was the yarn. So that was their goal, and they had to work together. We talked about, skills when you're working as a team, like speaking with one another, sharing ideas, and that was their goal. Okay, and lastly, you've heard us talk about Meetup. So Meetup is something that the teachers implement, but we provide all of the material. So all of the slides for the theme are given to the teachers, and they can take it and run with it, in a way that fits into their classroom. But I'm gonna just kind of let it speak for itself. You'll see that this is a 5th grade class. The students lead the Meetup daily, and you will notice that they're doing some vocabulary work surrounding the month's theme. You'll see some movement, you'll see some sharing, you'll see some breathing, and a wish well at the end.
The worst enemy to creativity is self-doubt. Think and then discuss. In what ways do you doubt or feel uncertain about yourself? How does this stop you from practicing creativity? Turn to talk to your partner about this. Everybody ready? Everybody ready? Turn to talk. 3, 2, 1, class. Yes, yes. It's okay and you can do it. Anybody else? Everyone close your eyes. Think of our wish well today. Picture people in our lives and in our community who need good thoughts today. Let's hold space for them in our hearts, fill our hearts with love, and sing lullaby to them. 3, 2, 1. We wish you well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think we're doing the balloon breathing with the next ones. That may be more of our elementary thing. But I think you can see in this how everything wraps around that sense of school culture, really helping kids with the connections with each other, with the people around them in their environment, and then starts to move out. So LaGrange has been doing this enough now. You saw the connections with the home, how they're working with the staff members to kind of support that growth and development across all levels of their school community. As we move into the secondary schools, I want to kind of foreshadow some things for that. So we are new in implementation. You're hearing 4 years in. with LaGrange. What we know is implementation of this is a 3 to 5 year process. And what we also know is it's tailored to the school community. So you're going to hear about a team of champions. Each of our middle and high schools developed a team of champions, meaning these are people within our school that are going to be the leaders of this work. They're going to champion this initiative in a way that makes sense for our school community. And so one of the first things that those teams did is they had training in what's called an implementation roadmap. And what that roadmap allows schools to do is to say, here's where we need to start our journey. This is the level of readiness. These are the needs that we need to address in our school community as priorities. And then they build their roadmap on their own, knowing that it comes across that 3 to 5 year period. You're going to hear from some of our schools that what we know, the best laid plans, you get 3 months in and say, maybe that wasn't the best way to do that for this year. So we have a reboot process built in where schools can really tweak and revise as they move along. So in the process of just starting this, we did select Character Strong as the platform for a number of reasons. It allowed schools great autonomy to integrate that. Some schools are doing it connected to advisory programs or within a house system that was already existing in their building. You'll hear about schools that are integrating it into specific courses within their school. And then some schools are doing it just as a standalone implementation. And schools, we did a mid-year debrief several weeks ago. Schools are already thinking too, what does that look like next year? How are we going to make some changes and revisions to that process? The big thing for secondary schools is what we know about adolescent development is relationships, relationships, relationships. That is what drives them. And so there is a big push within this curriculum for relationships first. And you'll see that demonstrated as we go through each of the lessons. Each of these schools approaches this work very differently, so I think you'll get a good, well-rounded idea of the different ways that schools can approach this. So the first school that we're going to talk about is Oldham County High School, and Joe Percival will share with that.
All right, just the button right there. Yeah. All right. Hey, go. Hi, Ms. Nykirk. It's good to see you. I'm so glad that you are back in Oldham County. It's awesome. So at Oldham County High School, we have been, last year we kind of got started in Character Strong, and I would say, Tara Steedley would always say that we're sort of like getting nibbles at it and sort of trying to figure out where we were going to be this year. And then this year, we have gone through a full-fledged implementation of Character Strong. So as Mel said, we do have a team of champions representing all of our departments, lots of different people from within the school that get an opportunity to get feedback from our teachers and other staff members, and then be able to come in and articulate to the group like where we want to go next steps. That group, I would say, is probably going to be one of the most important groups going in. You can imagine, I do want to take a second, and because there are quite a few of Oldham County high school teachers here, and I know just in general quite a few high school teachers here. And I will tell you that watching Bethany and them do their presentation, this is not necessarily in the wheelhouse of high school teachers. This is not what they were trained to do. But I can tell you that our teachers, while our implementation has not been perfect and has not been without its bumps in the road, our teachers by and large have embraced this work and recognized that it's important work that we need to do with our students because of the needs that we're seeing. We have nearly 1,700 kids in our building, as you all are aware. We have 4 counselors, and the mental health needs that we have of our students on some days are overwhelming. And so what I kind of see Character Strong in this program as is a way for us collectively as a group of 90 educators in the building to shoulder some of that responsibility and help where we can to develop relationships where we might be able to step in and help students who might be in crisis or in need. A couple things that we kind of talk about specifically with our group planning crew. Ms. Steedley has a group of students that she's working with, so we want to get input obviously from all stakeholders. We're trying to hear from those students and what's working for them and what's not working for them as we move forward. Our advisory groups, we've had those for several years now where our 15-minute, now it's 15 minutes, and then on our extended advisory days when we do Character Strong, it goes up to the full 5th period, 55-minute period. But we have 15 minutes a day that our teachers have with their advisory group groups. And so those teachers have had those students for, in some cases, 2 to 3 years, the same students. Now, depending on your advisory group, sometimes the teachers will say that that is not what they wish that would continue. Like, you know, can we mix this up next year maybe, or can we get a couple kids to go to another advisory because this grouping is maybe not great. But we also have, I've heard from multiple teachers that have said, I had these students in advisory last year, and oh my gosh, I wish I could have traded them for any other kids in the building, and this year I love these kids. Like, we're having a great advisory class. And so some of that just has to do, I mean, I have 4 kids myself, and I say that about my own kids sometimes, that there's times I wish that they weren't in my house, and then other days that you know, I love them to death. So, you know, I think that's sort of the growing pains of that advisor group, and I think the kids and the teachers are working through that process. The grade level projects is something that the kids are working on for this year, and we've had multiple students who have looked at different ways to take the things that they've learned in Character Strong and put that into an actual finished product to show some of the things that they've learned, whether it's from good sleep habits to their own mental health, how they've worked through those things. Character Strong, just a couple little things to talk about here, and I know Mel, I'll kind of skip over a couple of things because Mel has kind of outlined for you all just the aspects of Character Strong, but we try to relate everything that we do with our SEL program back to our Kernel Core. So for the last 4 years, we have based all of our Tier 1 expectations with our students around what we call the core. So basically what we preach to the kids is this is not just our rules and our expectations. This is what we expect you to be. This is what we want you to be as people. So what does that mean to look like as far as community and ownership, respect, and excellence? So it's not just you know, anything that we're talking about. So whether it is you throwing away your tray in the cafeteria and that expectation, which obviously we have that in every school, but then what more does that mean about being a part of a community? What's your sense of community, your ownership, that someone else doesn't have to handle your trash, things like that. And so as we go through and you look at things on here, the SEL competencies and then also the character development, some of the same things that you see in elementary school, we're trying to teach our high school kids. They are sometimes larger versions of the same types of kids. And so we are continually teaching them those relationship skills. And I would also throw in, Mel, you know, alluded to this a little bit, but I would also say that, you know, the year and a half to 2 years that we've had of COVID has eroded a lot of our kids' ability to develop relationships with one another. And so, you know, just the very basics of putting your phone down and looking at someone face to face and having a conversation with them, some of our kids, those skills have deteriorated a bit. And so this has really given them that opportunity to kind of reconnect with one another and at least have some people that they consider these are my people, or this is a teacher, an adult in the building that can be my person that I can go to if need be. So just a couple things about the sessions. Obviously, you know, we come in, have that warm welcome, and then the Character Strong does a really good job of going through and giving kids, you know, everything, especially with high school kids, a lot of times gamifying things is a way that you can connect with kids and get them up and moving and talking to one another, because it doesn't always work when you just have a group discussion or something like that. They don't always want to share. But when you have that ability to do some community building through games, you may have a little bit better chance to connect with them. And then the content, obviously the Character Strong content relating back to those competencies that we talked about. And then the to-be list, so that every session the students are given challenges. And it may be something as simple as this week, do 3 random acts of kindness for that challenge. And so the idea there is to have that not just be something that we do for 55 minutes during 5th period on Wednesdays, but to also have the kids try to apply those things moving forward in their lives. And then the optimistic closure, just simply leaving on a positive note every day, so that when the kids leave, they're leaving with some positive thoughts from their time together. And then finally, this is very similar. The way that the high school, I can tell you that within our school and our team of champions, one of the things that we have spent a lot of time talking about this year is how do we take the content from Character Strong and how do we make it work for us? It's a lot, and I will tell you that I would be lying to you if I told you that our teachers and our students at times don't get fatigued with the content. And so one of the things that's great about this, though, is that we have that ability, like Mel said, to try to tailor that to what is best for our kids. And so our group is continually looking at that, trying to figure out what that looks like for next year. And as you go through and look at those things, one of the things that is great about Character Strong is as the kids progress through the 4 years, and if you look at those 4 things, they sort of relate to what you would want those different levels of students to be looking at. Obviously, 9th graders coming in, finding that sense of belonging. And then as the 12th graders come in, trying to find that sense of leadership. And how do you take those next steps into your future lives? And so we're going to continue to look at that. Like I said, I'm glad that I got the opportunity to speak today because, and I'm also glad that today is the day that so many of our teachers are here, because I think it's really, really important for you all to hear that for all of our teachers, whether it's from elementary, we sometimes think elementary teachers they're just naturals at this type of thing, but I'm sure that there are lots of elementary teachers that they were not trained to be mental health consultants and mental health practitioners, and our high school teachers and middle school teachers definitely were not. And so we all have a little bit of that in our background, and we definitely care for kids and want to take that care for them. But this type of training and type of instruction is something that is a little bit out of our comfort zone at times, and I want to make sure that publicly you all know that our teachers have gone above and beyond in many cases to really try to meet the kids where they are and do what we know that our kids need. So I want to make sure that I get the opportunity to say that. So I think that's.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Andrea Carter. I am one of the school counselors at North Oldham Middle School.
I'm Katie Ackert.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our school was doing before the Character Strong curriculum was purchased by the district. So before, our teachers were essentially making their own Tier 1 social emotional curriculum. We as counselors would still supplement and create additional Tier 1 lessons, but the entire staff was really on board. It was an all hands on deck kind of thing. So that was when teachers would implement their own lessons of SEL in the time that was built into our schedule for that. It was another added thing that was put on our teachers' plate. And it actually took a lot of planning and time communicating with all the teachers in our building as far as the delivery of the lesson. Here's what we're doing this week. It was a lot of manpower. These were self-created lessons, so they weren't necessarily vertically aligned. So we had some groups of students who were getting duplicate SEL topics throughout their time in middle school, and so that is one of the things that we really like about Character Strong is it is vertically aligned. I'm going to hand it over to Katie, who's going to talk about how we started our year with Character Strong and then one of the tweaks we made and what we're doing right now.
Thank you. So as Ms. Carter said, before it was teacher-made, it was individual. They had a lot of prep time into those lessons and what they need to do. So with Character Strong, we were able to get that consistency across those grade levels, that vertical alignment, and it was just a lot more user-friendly and ready for teachers. So there's very little prep compared to what we were doing in middle schools in the past. So Character Strong now is able to meet that Tier 1 level, like SEL need that we have, and it allows for that consistency through the entire year. We can hit the ground running. There's no having to prepare things, getting to know your students first necessarily, getting to know what they've already had. You can just start with the program right off the bat. So we haven't missed a step with that, which, as we've all talked about, this year, that's critical. So that has been very helpful. Teachers at our school did buy into it fairly quickly once they realized how easy it would be for them to implement and the conversations they could have with their students. So once we were able to train them and show them that there is very little prep work on their end, and even there's videos for all of the content lessons that they are going to implement, so they can watch that. It's quick video, and it shows them exactly what they're going to walk through. So even our teachers, as Mr. Percival pointed out, get a little nervous sometimes having to do these type of lessons in middle and high school. They can get as prepared as they feel like they need to be. Some can take that and run. Others, they have this little video that they can watch, and that has really helped us make sure that every teacher feels a little bit more competent and comfortable while doing this. So I will say we had buy-in from our teachers when we trained them. And then we started. So our 8th grade, we needed a little bit of buy-in from. We figured out it wasn't Character Strong, it was the schedule and where we put it. So we have a crew period at the end of the day. It's only 18 minutes long. They don't necessarily see those teachers in any other time of the day. So we thought, this is great, though. It was built for SEL and character education. And with COVID, we weren't able to do our families the way we wanted and some other things. So we thought this is a perfect place for this to go. But it meant they had very little time. They were doing it 5 days a week. So talking about the burning out of teachers doing that and trying to fit that in and being rushed with students they didn't have relationships with. So again, the 6th and 7th grade were a little bit more on board. 8th grade, we've talked a lot about relationships and adolescence, and so we pivoted in the middle of the year, and that was the beauty of it. We were able to do that. So instead of trying to do 15 minutes every day, we now have one 40-minute lesson a week, and we split that amongst content. So 1 week, all math teachers across the school will give their classes the Character Strong lesson. And so they normally can fit a little content in at the end because we have 60-minute periods, and it takes about 45 minutes now, which is great because before the conversation wasn't lasting that long. They weren't really diving deep into it because it was always rushing. So now we have actually heard from students they're really enjoying the lessons, and teachers are saying they're getting a lot more out of it. They feel they only have to do it. Each content only loses one lesson a month to SEL now with the way we've set it up. So they don't get burnout of it. They only have to do it once a month. I think they enjoy it. They get to have those deep conversations with kids they already have good relationships with. So that is how we were able to adjust it a little bit. I also put up there that this is just supplemental. So Character Strong has definitely helped us for getting that tier 1 into the classroom, but since the content lessons are different depending on grade level, we're still able to create SEL school-wide opportunities through our monthly themes that we do, and we attempt to tie in the Character Strong lessons that month. So like leading up to Red Ribbon Week in October, we did healthy habits, we had a gratitude in November, so we were able to get staff and students all kind of on the same page school-wide. And so for gratitude, every teacher was able to write on a template one of their gratitudes and put that outside their door, and then students put that on a leaf, and we made a display on a tree in the cafeteria. So we're still doing some of the other things we were doing, but it's way more cohesive now and comprehensive. We're able to put everything together under the same umbrella. We also include parents by sending a counselor newsletter that addresses our monthly theme and gives ideas on how they can participate at home. Another added feature is there are character dares. Mr. Percival mentioned some of those, but there's also family dares. So we put those in the newsletter, and so there's things they can do as a family that kind of matches the theme for what we're doing in the school with them that month. So we actually have not had any parent complaints around our SEL program this year, and I feel like we've been able to integrate it very well with a lot of things we would like to improve on next year now that we have a year under our belt. And Ms. Carter's going to talk because there's a lot of other resources and things that Character Strong offers that we use to supplement, not just in our SEL program, but teachers use in the classroom as well.
Perfect. All right. So one of the added features of Character Strong is their gym, which is essentially a resource library for any of our staff members to use. One of the tools in the gym that our school utilizes the most is the activity library. So this houses hundreds of different activities ranging in time, purpose, number of students, and content level. So you can filter out really quickly by your preference and easily implement one of these community building activities into your lesson or your work session. Ms. Ackert and I, we have ran a couple of small groups for our tier 2 level in school this year. And so we have been able to use this as like an icebreaker type thing for our students. So it's just another added feature to Character Strong. It's something that teachers can easily pull into a lesson based on the amount of time they have left, and it's a great added feature. The other thing that the gym has are virtual assemblies. I know we have not used an assembly yet this year, but there is a virtual assembly on student stress that I know some other schools have used. There are kindness journal prompts, restorative practice activities, different student sessions, and then staff morale boosters. And so we were able to actually use one of these last year. They were compliment creations, and so they were all already on the website. We printed them off, we put them on a board, We encouraged staff members to go around and pick one. It was a fill in the blank. Some were really sweet and sincere, some were funny. You could place them in the staff member's mailbox and they were able to get those. So it was all prepared, it was ready, it was right there, it was really easy to use. But this is just another added feature of the Character Strong curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Paula Moore, and I'm going to share with you how we are implementing social emotional learning at the Arvin Center. I know you're aware this is my first year as a counselor, or the first year that we've ever had a counselor here, and so it's something that's very new to our school community. So we took the time at the beginning of the year to really think together as a staff and determine 3 objectives, how we could implement this well. And these are the 3 that we went with. We wanted to provide purposeful, intentional instruction in our classrooms. How we can make that happen and how often was something that we had to play with a little bit, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But and then our second objective was to intentionally building connection. That's something that I know you continue to hear about, but it's something that's certainly on my heart, and I'm sure the heart of all the educators in this room, that our students desperately need connection. And so we wanted to figure out and intentionally plan for how we would make that happen at the Tier 1 level in our classroom communities. And then 3, how can we increase discourse, students talking to each other? If you watch our lobbies sometimes, we're more intentional and kids are responding to that in other mornings or afternoons as they enter and exit. There's lots of earbuds in and lots of phone walking. I have joked with our admin team about putting cones down just to see and watch in awe of how they can do that and maneuver around and walk while looking at their phone. But we know our kids need to engage with each other more and with their teachers as well to have the best experience that they can have. So those were our 3 objectives this year. How we started that is we completed a needs assessment separately with students, staff, and with parents. And then we looked for common themes. We knew that trying to use Character Strong here, we discovered quickly, that's where we thought we were going to go, but we discovered quickly by September that every school was going to pace their instruction and their use of Character Strong differently. So the challenge with that is when you get students into the classroom and they're pacing differently, they've had different lessons at different times, and that was going to be almost a barrier to making it authentic and meaningful. And so we decided to do something a little different. We asked students, staff, and parents, what do your kids need? What do you want to learn about? And our students were great at telling us, and we were thrilled to see that among the 3 separate needs assessment results that we had commonalities. And so we've planned our lessons based on those commonalities that we found. So our teachers present content that I provide to them every 2 weeks, and for our programs where they stay with the same teacher the entire time and they don't rotate, it's the same teacher that implements every lesson, but for some of our teachers, they implement every other, so it seems more manageable for them. So these are some of the topics that we've explored, and I've included some of the ties to the 5 areas of SEL according to the CASEL model that Mel shared as well. So our students' primary, what their needs assessment, which I think I provided some summary for you in the handouts, what they really wanted to know is what next? How do I connect with my post-secondary plans? And so we started there. That, I think, felt a little safer to our students, too, to talk about what's out there. How does my personality and my values, how can that connect to different careers that I can explore for my future? It connects really well with what we do here at Arvin, too. So that's where we started. We spent several of our first months in lessons targeting those skills. And then our teachers really were glad to see that our students reported that they wanted to learn about time management and study skills, because this was a biggie too. And so our teachers have really implemented this well because they know our kids need this. And they are doing a really great job at connecting that when you're managing your time well, how does that impact your anxiety? How does that impact how you relate to other people and how you get along? And what other problems come when you aren't studying for using your study skills, what barriers are present. So our most recent lesson that we completed last week was on prioritizing, and students got to try out the Eisenhower decision matrix and just plan out the next 2 days of their of what they had to accomplish and try and just learn the basics of how to prioritize. For some of us, we have parents who taught us how to do that, or a class in college that taught us how to do that. And for others, like, this was really something that they enjoyed exploring. So I think the slides for that were provided too. And then next, we're going to be moving into mental health. Our second objective was just how can we make this a tier 1 happening here, which I know other people have mentioned is a little bit more difficult at the secondary level. So we have spent our teacher work days taking a portion of our time together, which hasn't been lengthy, but has been intentional, thinking and naming the things that we already do in our classrooms and sharing that with each other as colleagues. And then we also looked at building our why. What is it that our students are reporting in our needs assessment data, but also we analyzed our signs of suicide data for the students here at Arvin, and just to see where those numbers fell, so that our staff had a connection to know this is present here with us. This is among our students, and what programs had the highest number of students that reported that they struggle with suicidal ideation. And then in the most recent teacher work day, we spent time looking at national research for a study that's been done pre and post-COVID on what students are reporting when it comes to loneliness and belonging and their connections with staff members at school. And then our third objective is just to increase those daily times for discourse and interacting with each other. This isn't natural, and so how can we do that? So we have what we call learning in the lobby moments, and sometimes it's just as simple as putting a slide up and engaging with students or having them engage with each other as they walk to class. And other times it's more intentional, like when we had a big rock, paper, scissors tournament. And thankfully we have Mr. Watkins, and he can lead those big moments much better than me. But that's what we're doing here at Arvin. Like other schools have said, it's something that we're going to analyze. And I did take January needs assessment data with our students so that they could tell me where they are now to guide the last few of our lessons this year. So it's evolving. It's not perfect, but I hope that it's made our school a place where our students are they feel connected and like they are belonging here. So thank you.
Thank you.
So our goal for this session was just to give you a snapshot of the big picture, what's going on in the school communities, how schools are being responsive to the needs of students. And one thing I promise is it will continue to evolve. As we get kids back in the building, as we see resiliency picking up for them, as we look at what are the different needs that manifest themselves within each school community, our schools will be responsive to those and really continue to pivot and address those where they can. I did include information for you about just the scope and sequence, what types of things are in the lessons for these, but they're also on our district website. I have trouble navigating websites, so I just put the roadmap down there. Under academics and MTSS, there is an SEL section that just gives you more information about the specific programs that we are using right now, but it will be ongoing. As I mentioned, our elementary counselors really did a lot of research and picked Sanford Harmony as their first, like, this is the one we think will best meet our needs. And then 2-3 years in, we discovered where that had some gaps and we weren't as responsive as we wanted to be. So we added another resource, and I think we can anticipate that that will happen as we move through the next few years. But we've got great leaders in our schools who are doing this work with our kids and families, and they're going to continue to grow this. So any questions for us?
Board members, do you have any questions?
No. Can I make a statement? Sorry. Mel, I met with you a few weeks ago and we talked about SEL, and I asked for the presentation that you put together today, and I greatly appreciate it. I know that some parents had asked about opting their kids out of SEL, and I think personally a lot of that is because they didn't know what it was and what it included. And I greatly appreciate you all taking the suggestion to put it on our website so that all of the parents can go in, they can click on the lessons, they can look at what their kids are doing. And I would really recommend parents do that before they just decide to opt out of a program that they don't really know what it's about. And I just want to thank you for sitting with me. I hampered you with a lot of stuff and had a lot of frank discussions with you about it, and I appreciate your transparency, and I just want parents to understand nothing's being hidden. I love that it's on the website. I can go and click on it when my kids talk about what they learned, or if I ask them about it. Talk to your kids about it and ask them before you just decide that you want to opt your kid out of SEL, please.
Thank you. And I will say, with all of that information that is out there, when we did our mid-year debrief, the leads in each of our buildings shared a lot of information with each other. So different schools are sending out information to parents in different ways. I know that we have had counselors who have met with parents in an ongoing way to say, here are the lessons that are coming up for your child. What questions do you have? So I always encourage parents, if they've got questions, call your school leaders. They know this, they live it, they breathe it, they're in this for the best things for their children, and they're great connecting points.
Mr. Kehoe, do you have?
Yeah, Ms. Abernathy, I was talking to the superintendent before this meeting, and one of the things I said to him was, how can we get this program made into an academic setting? But Ms. Moore had mentioned that she incorporates the studying skills, the time management skills, and other things into this, and I like that path that you're all going down. And then I'd also like to see maybe a little bit more from an academic standpoint in that path that's either included into this or something separate that we could do.
Okay.
And that is a natural progression with that. So as we look at the relationship piece, we look at those connections to how to be a productive individual. And so that's kind of where some of those offshoots happen of how do I be a productive team member, whether it's in a classroom or on a job site. And so all of those conversations wrapping around relationships do connect back, and there's roads that connect them with other things in their life. I was in one of our elementary schools this morning, and as we were looking at classrooms, looking at how they pivoted off some of this information, and it really was a springboard into some of the academic learning that was happening in that learning environment. It's just gonna take us time to help everybody gain that confidence and for each school to kind of find their rhythm and how that works within their individual schools community.
I got one question. When the year's up, I know some of them is first year for it, what have you, are they planning on each group from each school having a meeting to discuss, well, this worked well for us, this worked well for, get them together, this didn't work?
Yes, we just did our mid-year, like we bring together the leads of all of those teams of champions and they listen to each other. Because what we found is something that's working at Oldham County High School, South Oldham High School might be struggling with, and so they shared ideas, and all of that will go back to the team of champions in each building. And they're kind of in the middle of, let's think about our revision, reboot, pivot for next year. What will this look like next year? It may be that the needs of the school community have changed. It may be they've learned something about how it's being implemented in their building and ways that they could be more efficient and effective. And so, yes, each school will be going back through that process for next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else got anything that you'd like to ask? We thank you. It's been an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. As you can tell, there's a lot of passion for this work in this room, and we just know how much it's pouring into our kids and our communities, and it's needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abernathy, and thank you, LaGrange Elementary and Oldham County High School and North Oldham Middle School and the Arvin Center. Thank you for sharing what's happening on the ground every day in our classrooms and in the hallways and with our staff and certainly for our students. So thank you very much.
We're going to move to our treasurer's report. Mrs. Anderson. Invite you to speak to us.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right, the presentation begins on page 29, and this is the treasurer's report for the month of February. We begin with the cash, and we started with $58 million as our beginning balance, and we ended with $57 million. You can see in our governmental funds, our disbursements exceeded our receipts, which is par for the course this time of year. And then we've got activity in both the food service and the daycare programs. In the next section, we've got our bonded construction funds, and we're seeing a little bit of disbursements for East Oldham Middle and maybe some tail end of the Buckner Elementary as well. And then we've got our investments as the final piece. On the following page, you've got all this money broken down by funds. We've got positive funds in special revenue account. You can see $1.2 million. We're getting money for the daycare grant. We got 2 months this time for our federal cash request for our federal funds, and we also received our KETS grant from the state. So that's the reason for that positive balance. As we move to page 31, we have the historical comparisons. And I just want to remind you on this one that in fiscal '21, we have that $2.1 million that was taken out of expenses. So while it looks like the transition from fiscal '21 to fiscal '22 has seen a large increase, that's because our fiscal '21 numbers are artificially low. If we go to the middle section, the general revenue with the selected accounts, I just want to call your attention to this account 1113, the PSC property. That amount is quite large compared to what those previous time periods were. It's $1.2 million, and this is correct. They've been really slow in sending this money in our direction, and we received $926,000 in this month alone. So that was the full amount that we had recorded by this time in fiscal '20. So we will be over budget on that, and that is a good thing. The remainder of the accounts through the rest of the page are where we would expect them to be for this time of year. On page 32, you've got the detail for each of the revenue accounts. And page 34, we begin our salaries by category. And as we look at the salaries and we compare fiscal 19, 20, 21, and 22, we're seeing about $1 million increase in each of those time periods this far through the year. Let's see, I don't think there was too much more that, well, let's look at page 39. We're looking at natural gas and electricity. You can see a significant increase in some of these costs on page 39. The accounts 0621, 0622. Part of that is because we've had the electric on a little bit longer because of COVID to make sure that we're filtering that air, moving that around. But we are also looking at what is looking like a CPI right now is 7.9%. So that will translate in some way to our budget next year. And so while we've had low to no inflation the last several years, we're looking at a significant increase this year. If we go to the final page, page 41, again, I'm looking at the grand totals on this. We go from 48 million to 53 million, 48 million, and then 56 million. Just want to remind you again that in the 48 million is a good number. The 53 million includes a $2.1 million bonus, and if we pull that out, we're looking at 51 million. And then in fiscal 21, we've got 48 million, but that was shorted by the amount that went to Fund 2, so that's really 50.7 million. And this year, our number, I say inflated, it includes our $3 million bonus, the $1,500 and $750 that we did for employees. So our normal operating costs would be closer to 53 million. So we are still seeing an increase over prior years, but not the large variance that we're seeing on this particular report. And if we look at the areas where we're seeing the most increases, we're looking at salaries, we're looking at the CERS going up 12% this year, we're looking at water, air conditioning, copiers, and then utilities, gas and diesel, and another big expense is flat panels, and that was one of the things that we budgeted, and it is a help to our schools for certain, but it is an increase in our costs. On page 43, we have the expenses by function. And on page 46, we have all of those expenses that I referenced earlier that went into Fund 2 and reduced our costs in Fund 1. And then on page 48, we have each of our balance sheets by fund. And on 63, we have our income statements by fund. And that concludes this portion of the treasurer's report.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Mr. Kehoe, Ms. Nykerk, all in favor? It's 4-0. Bills and claims.
All righty, bills and claims are on page 121. The summary of this lists all of the activities since our last board meeting. We have 1,200 invoices. Last year, this time, we had 1,400, and we spent $7.5 million instead of $5.1 million. And last year, we were paying for COVID refunds and a lot of construction projects. So that's a reason for these, the difference. And then following that are each of the invoices that we have paid. And that concludes this portion.
Any questions about bills and claims? Do I have a motion to Mr. Kehoe, Mrs. Hundley, all in favor? 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We've got 2 sets of minutes to approve. One from our regular board meeting on February 28th, 2022. Everyone will be able to vote for that. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Mrs. Nykerk, second by Mr. Kehoe, all in favor? That's 4-0. Second was a special called meeting on March 14th, 2022. Mrs. Hundley, you'll have to abstain from this one. But is there a motion to approve this? Mr. Kehoe, second by Ms. Nykerk, all in favor? That's 3-0. Let's see. Superintendent, personnel actions, what's your recommendation?
Yes, recommend the personal actions be as presented to the board.
Okay. Okay, next is consent items A through G. Is there any comment on any of them?
I'd like to see if we could table these board schedule and look at that again next meeting.
You want to say something?
Sure, we can, Mr. Kehoe, point me to the which item that is on the.
I'm sorry, it's in enclosure K, the calendar, or enclosure I, board meetings calendar.
Okay. Sure, we can discuss that. We can discuss that further as if the board would like to do that for future.
That wasn't a consent item, was it?
I don't.
I thought it was.
No.
It's an action item.
That's action item. Consent agenda items, anybody have any questions about them? Superintendent, your recommendation?
Yes, for consent items, I recommend to be approved as presented.
First by Mrs. Hundley, second by Mr. Kehoe, all in favor? That's 4-0. Recognitions. I'll turn it over to Superintendent. Mrs. Hundley's going to assist him on this.
Thank you all for coming. We have several recognitions we'd like to do, and we're experienced that. Thank you for your patience. Many of you are here for recognitions, and we also have several staff and teachers here, so thank you for also being here as well. Okay, welcome. Oldham County Schools is pleased to announce 7 students have earned the 2022 National Merit Finalist title. National Merit Finalists are chosen from the National Merit Semifinalists announced earlier in 2021.
About 90% of the semifinalists attain finalist standing, and more than half of the finalists will win a National Merit Scholarship, earning the Merit Scholar title. To become a finalist, the semifinalists and their high school must submit a detailed scholarship application in which they provide information about the semifinalists' academic record, participation in school and community activities, demonstrated leadership abilities, employment, and honors and awards received. A finalist must have an outstanding academic record through a high school, be endorsed and recommended by a high school official, write an essay, and earn SAT scores that confirm the student's earlier performance on the qualifying test. I'd like to recognize those students who earned the National Merit Finalist title. First, from North Oldham High School. So if you would, when I call your name, please come forward, and we'd like to recognize you and get a photo. Taylor Childress. Absolutely. Aspen Fain. Trey Hoyer. Aditi Kona. Shamitha Kapala. And Quentin Proud. And from South Oldham High School, Sam Larson. Okay, moving on to our next set of recognition announcements. Tonight, we'd also like to recognize members from the wrestling team at Oldham County Middle School. Oldham County Middle School competed in the state wrestling duels and the state tournament, winning the state title for the team in both tournaments. The wrestling team is coached by Coach Reardon, Blake Young, Brent Gibbs, Aaron Reardon, and Max Emerson. I'd like to recognize these student athletes. First place team in state duels and state tournament. Zach Amon. Jacob Armstead. Jaden Corum. Madden Brown. Hayden Drexler. Jackson Edgar. Nolan Favorite. Jack Grimes. Tyler Hillebrandt. Joey Huff. Braylon Jimenez. Mason Caparon. Tatum Millett. Grant Schatzer. Paxton Slayton. Nate Vota. Lucas Young. Ryan Young. Congratulations to our student athletes.
Smallest in the back and the shortest in the front. We'll have 2 rows.
Suzanne, you need to be in the front row. Y'all might as well hold it there a minute. Got some parents. Okay. Oh.
Okay. Next, certainly last but not least, individual finishers include Tatum Millette, who is also a middle school student, is the high school state champion. Tatum beat out 16 other girls in her weight class to win first place in the high school state wrestling tournament. I have 3 other student athletes I'd like to recognize. Madden Brown, first in weight class. Ryan Young, second in weight class. Lucas Young, third in weight class.
Let's give them all one big round.
Congratulations and thank you so much for being here.
We're going to give you all time to leave if you don't want to stay for this exciting meeting. But why don't we take a quick 10-minute break?
5 minutes?
5-minute break, start up at, make it 5:50 by that clock back there.
7 minutes.
Y'all the one usually hollering for it.
I'm just saying.
Okay, we'll get started back. Superintendent, would you like to introduce our showcase?
Yes, for student showcase for this evening is Locust Grove Elementary, and we have a video, and I think Ms. Hayes will maybe speak to that when the video's at the conclusion.
Good afternoon. At Locust Grove, we are a lighthouse school, which means our students lead most of everything we do. We have academic committees, we do social, community service projects, and we just listed 3 of the things that are happening at Locust Grove. One being our Monday morning meetings are back, and we're so excited to have our Monday morning beanies back, and we have our Genius Nights are back, and we have a production of Annie going on, so each one will get to tell you a little bit about what's going on. This is Kenton Moore. He's going to be telling you about our Monday morning meetings, and then we have Logan Stess, who will tell you about our Genius Night, and then we have Brindley Annis, who will be telling you about Annie.
Could you hand them the microphone so we...
It's not nerve-wracking, you can do it. And this is Kenton Moore from the famous Moore family.
Okay, so every Monday, we gather up, a song plays, and we all go down to the gym, and we just think about stuff that happened last week, like the super leaders. Basically, whenever someone is caught being good, they get a Grover Gotcha, which is then put in a little basket, and at the end of the week, it's drawn, and whoever's name is on that for doing something good, they become super leader. Also, those Grover Gotchas give house points. And house points can help, like, at Monday morning meeting, we see which house is in the lead to be champion, and usually we get to... And basically, the houses, like, compete. There are 6 houses. They're all named after famous lighthouses. There's Hercules, Jeddah, Hatteras, Andros, Eldred, and Waugoshance. And basically, some of the ways we get house points is service projects. So basically, throughout the year, we have a service project for all of the grades to do to one of the service projects that we did this year was the 3rd grade service project, and it was about canned food drive for all of people that were homeless, just to help them out at food shelters during Thanksgiving time and stuff. And if you turned some in, you would get some house points. So that kind of encouraged people to do good things. So, yeah, that's what house points are.
Awesome.
So I'm going to talk about Genius Night, and like our Genius Nights are like times where like the students, like we do them by like grade level. So like 5th grade went first, and kindergarten will go last in oldest to youngest order. So like it's like a night to like show like what you've done throughout the year and like show off your work, and like you show them like your leadership binder, which is something we do where like we put things that kind of like represent leadership, and we put like our really good work in there. You show that off. And like one of the things you can do during Genius Night is like give a tour of the school and show all the important places. Like, yeah, you just show all the important places and you do that. And then, yeah, you just show off your work and pretty much just a time to brag about what you've done throughout the year. So yeah, that's Genius Night for you.
Hi. So at our school, our drama teacher, Miss Greneau, is putting on a play. It's called Annie. In case if you don't know what Annie is, it's about a orphan girl who wants to be with her parents. And then one day she gets asked to come to a mansion by this dude named Oliver Warbucks. And so, for Christmas. And Annie's parents show up because he conducts a search for her parents. But it turns out they're not her actual parents. And so it turns out happy in the end. Why we're doing this to like showcase people's geniuses. Like, to showcase like, there are people that you think would never be able to like be good at acting, and then they turn out in the play. And it's also to like show people, like, to some people like might be afraid to speak up around other people. It might show them that it's okay to do that. Also, we have performances going on after school on Wednesday night and Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. And then we have performances going on in school on Wednesday and Thursday at 8 o'clock. So basically.
Is that this week? Is that this week?
This week.
So it's Wednesday and Thursday after school?
Uh-huh. Night at 6:30.
6:30. And what day is it during school?
Wednesday and Thursday again.
At 8 in the morning.
8 a.m.?
And you're all invited.
That's humongous.
There's your invite.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McWilliams, I think you got some competition for the Art Center.
That's all, folks.
Thank you. You want to say anything?
I'll share with the board and with our audience, I stopped by this morning and got to watch the Monday morning meeting at Locust Grove, and what a great way to start the week. I talked about that at our district team meeting this morning, so just a great thing for what we're doing for kids, and that's why we're here, just an example. So thank you, Locust Grove.
Our next session's public expression. I want to read the guidelines for it, and then we'll determine how long it will be. The board will designate a portion of the meeting to hear public comment regarding areas under the board's jurisdictions. Persons wishing to speak shall sign in with the registrar and review the policy on making public comment. The board chairperson or designee will read aloud the public expression guidelines. Speakers should register by signing the sign-in sheet upon their arrival to the meeting. The board will call upon speakers in order of which they have signed in. Speakers shall not exceed the time limit allotted by the board. The board will allocate time based on the number of individuals registered to speak. Public criticism of individuals, staff members, and individual board members is prohibited. Concerns about individual staff performance should be addressed with the staff member directly or his or her immediate supervisor or the board chairperson respectively. Public expression is not a question and answer period. Any questions expressed by the speaker will be noted with directives for appropriate administration to follow up. The board, however, reserves the right to respond when appropriate or necessary. We have 9 people. What are y'all's recommendations? 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes. Mr. Kehoe, can you keep time for me? The first speaker is Lori Foster.
Ready? Hello, my name is Lori Foster, and I have taught in Oldham County for 10 years. I am also the Oldham County Education Association president. In the past 10 years that I have been here, teachers and staff have shouldered increased responsibilities of social emotional learning, trauma-informed care, increases in terroristic threatening, pivoting to online learning, and pivoting back to in-person learning at the height of a pandemic. I am asking the board for a minimum of a 6% reoccurring raise to compensate for the many burdens educators and staff have shouldered for this community. Families come to Oldham County for its reputation, but we are currently on a path that is not sustainable to maintain this elite reputation. This is not speculation. I live it every single day. Last year, I had classes with 40 students in every class because staff members did not come back. And this year, I teach 2 classes during the same hour because we could not find a staff member. At OCHS, we have students learning graduation required courses online because people left in the middle of the year. How long will students and families put up with these patchwork fixes before they go somewhere else? How long can teachers work under these type of workloads before they need to go somewhere else? We have to pay teachers significantly more so that they might stay. Since 2008, the average state salary in Kentucky has fallen an inflation-adjusted 4%. So anything less than the 4% wouldn't even get us to an actual raise. It would just get us nearly where we were 10 years ago. I ask you for a reoccurring 6% raise because of the inflation rates over the past decade, the burdens on teachers and staff, and because teachers are leaving, which places the people that stay here under tenuous, difficult working conditions. I understand that this district spends 87% of its budget on salaries, and to that I say, let's make it 90%. We are a district, we are a people-to-people business. And if the past 2 years have taught us anything, in-person instruction with qualified professional educators simply cannot be matched. It's time to sacrifice every other budgetary priority in favor of taking care of those that are on the front lines of taking care of students. We are exhausted by the excuses that this district has given to us over the past decade about why this district cannot afford recurring raises. Because what I hear when we are told that is that you are willing for teachers and staff to bear the burden of the budgetary sacrifices. Do what it takes to show Kentucky teachers that this is the best district to work for, because they're not going to be told that they are valued. They will be showed, they will be generously compensated for what they do. Do what it takes to change the employee conversations about leaving this district to conversations that convince other teachers and staff members to come and work here. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Ethan Moore.
First, I want to publicly thank the board on the stipend that was issued this past December and for the speed for which it was voted on. I also want to publicly thank Dr. Radford for his willingness to meet with teachers both individually and in groups throughout the school year, and for Mr. Deves and his work with the retention committee. As the budget becoming final in a couple of weeks, the urgency for employee raises is at its apex. For years, the budget has neglected teacher and staff raises on the salary schedule, instead placing the priority on other factors. That's understandable in some years. However, currently, since the raises haven't been addressed, the priority must be placed on teacher and staff raises above anything else. A quick glance at our pay scale, and you'll see that teachers with 10 or more years experience, the step increases are just 1%. It hasn't even kept up with the inflation since 2016 when it was around 2% annually, and it certainly doesn't now with it skyrocketing over 7%. Property values have been raised twice since 2017, but those funds didn't go towards raises. Additionally, we still should not be making less than educators in Bullitt and Shelby counties. As I'm advocating for teachers here, I've been advocating for us in Frankfort, imploring our elected officials to fully fund kindergarten, transportation, and SEEK. Regarding employee raises, I wanted to share with our representatives their responses here ahead of the final budget regarding their budget proposals. Ken Fleming said, in House Bill 1, we increase SEEK funding as well as push more money to the school districts. I am encouraging OCPS to increase teacher salaries. Jerry Miller said, our goal was to provide additional funding so that local school boards can use their discretion to provide their employees raises. Jason Nemes said, we increase funding for local school districts so they could increase salaries for teachers, which OCPS should do. When I pressed for more direct information about their budget proposal, only Representative Nemes responded saying, teachers are paid by school boards. We gave them the money for the raises. Your local school board needs to give the pay raises. Chris McDaniel, the Senate Revenue Chairman, recently told the Lexington Herald-Leader, quote, there is plenty of money for teacher raises in there. When you mandate raises, which is not happening, it has to flow through the SEEK formula and hits districts differently. This allows the flexibility of their own board policy, and if they want to do raises, they absolutely can, end quote. While I understand that the budget still isn't final, the fact remains that teachers are past due for raises because we have been taken for granted in regards to salary schedule for several years. And to be completely honest, a 1%, 2%, or 3% raise isn't going to keep teachers or administrators here. For us to truly feel valued, it needs to be a substantial amount, especially since it's been so long that we've had a salary schedule change. In closing, I had a colleague say to me that we shouldn't have to beg for a raise, and I agree. But the narrative will change if we are made the priority in this upcoming budget and one of the priorities in the years to come. Thank you.
Melanie Kidwell.
My name is Melanie Kidwell, and I'm a 20-year veteran teacher at Oldham County High School. But my roots in Oldham County go much deeper. My daddy moved to this community as a boy and graduated from OCHS in 1965. I grew up in this community, graduating from Oldham County High School in 1989, and I raised my daughter in this community. She graduated from OCHS in 2018. As a longtime resident of Oldham County, a teacher in this district, and a member of KEA, I am here to respectfully request a substantial recurring raise. Educators have been lobbying their legislators in Frankfort these last few weeks, asking that public schools be fully funded, transportation, full-day kindergarten, an increase in SEEK funding, and a mandate for raises. I have written, I have called, I have shown up in person. Dr. Radford, I know that you have as well, and I thank you for that. But the truth is, we cannot count on Frankfort. So now I am here lobbying you, each of you. Oldham County educators must have a substantial recurring raise. It is long overdue, it is well-deserved, and it is desperately needed. Property taxes, inflation, and daily cost of living all have risen. Our salaries have not. If Oldham County Schools is to retain its reputation of excellence, we must retain the excellent educators who work here. I know that a new committee was formed this year to seek out ways to recruit, induct, and retain teachers. But if we are to retain excellent teachers, we must raise salaries. Oldham County Schools does itself a grave disservice by not prioritizing the retention and attraction of highly qualified staff through appropriate pay increases for cost of living at least. We often talk about doing what's best for kids. I would suggest to the board that the single best thing we can do for our kids, our students, is to retain the excellent educators we have and to recruit talented new teachers. I throw my voice behind Lori Foster's in calling for a 6% raise. Thank you.
Hasten O'Daniel. I hope I got that name right.
Before I truly start my speech, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Hagen Hamilton O'Daniel, and I'm a student at Oldham County High School. I suffer from a learning disability called dyslexia, which affects my ability to read and write. My mother is an ELL teacher at Oldham County High School, and my grandmother was a teacher prior to her retirement. To say that education has had a profound effect on me would be an understatement. I can say without a doubt, through the hard work and determination of teachers, that I have found many successes in my academic career. With this in mind, I come to speak with you today in order to express my concerns over teacher pay and retention. This year alone, I've lost 2 teachers, including both a science and media arts teacher, who both chose to leave the education field to work in industries with better pay. While I understand that COVID has compounded these issues, the problem is the undervaluing of teachers, which has been a long-standing problem in the American education system. Not only has this caused us to lose talented teachers, but it's also impacted the quality of education. I now know firsthand, as a student in a class with a long-standing teacher vacancy, that the quality of my education has been negatively impacted. There is no substitute for skilled educators. In closing, Oldham County Public Schools are the pride of this community. The ability to recruit and retain staff is critical in maintaining the future success of OC's excellence. I urge the board to remember that talented teachers make quality citizens and contributors. I yield the rest of my time to the board.
Thank you. Michelle Elliott.
Good evening. Me again. I'm here today to talk about the parent relationships within our schools. Before I get started, I already had this written down, but it's already been said, but I was going to bring up again where are the raises for our teachers. I know I brought it up last month, but I know this isn't a question and answer part. So I noticed it was not on the agenda tonight to be discussed, approved, to look at the piece about getting our parents back into the schools as volunteers, whether it be for helping out in the classrooms or even eating lunch with our kids. I know parents have emailed and asked when that is going to happen, and no real answer has been given, and we have a right to know that. Parents and kids are missing out on some time that can never be regained. For example, parents of 5th graders who are getting ready to head into middle school, our kindergartners, 8th graders, senior, the list goes on. We're missing out on time with our kids inside the school setting, and it's important. I want to make a few points, and I hope that this is revisited soon and this happens soon, that it's opened back up. And these points are from my personal experience. The parent-teacher relationship, I believe, is crucial with academics and mental well-being for our kids. The parent-principal relationship, I think, is very important too. I have served on my kids' PTA for the last 4 years. And all of our moms on our PTA and dad, we have a great relationship with our principal, and anytime we have a fundraiser, our big fundraiser of the year, I know at least twice in the last 2 years, it was because of PTA and because our principal had asked to make sure our kids were 1-in-1 Chromebooks. So as of now, as of our last fundraiser, last year, 2021, we were able to, principal requested it, and we were able to come through with that, and now all of our students are 1-in-1 Chromebooks. So again, that was a relationship that, our parents had built with our school. Again, that is extremely important. And here we go again with our 2020 fundraiser. It was our big fundraiser, and 80% of our funds are going towards a new playground. 20% are going towards immediate needs. We were supposed to, sorry, I've lost my place. We were supposed to start the new playground process 2 years ago, I believe. I might have my years off now. But it was put on hold because the district said they would get involved and help revamp, and that has not happened. So now, again, our PTA parents And our community who donated to our fundraiser, we're the ones that are getting this going and getting our kids the new playground and things that we need inside the school. My point is, and hopefully I have enough time to say it, I think I'm talking pretty fast. Oldham County, part of the success is not only our teachers are wonderful, and yes, they deserve what they are asking for. It's the parents as well, and the principals, and the community. And it's driven by this. You know, I've seen a couple of other schools where the fundraisers and how much money they've brought in. And again, we can't do this without our community, our parents, our teachers, and our principals and our staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Chandra Emerson.
Hello, I am Chandra Emerson, and I'm from South Oldham High School. First of all, I want to thank you so much for the dedication that you all give to Oldham County schools, parents, students, staff, and teachers. And I understand that your jobs are really difficult. And I appreciate you listening to all these viewpoints to make the best decisions. In my service as the 2008 Kentucky Teacher of the Year, I traveled across the country learning about educational systems in the nation. I was proud to represent Kentucky and Oldham County, but shocked to see the disparities between how teachers are valued in Kentucky compared to other states. And you would think that a county that values education, as Oldham County does, would also respect teachers enough to have one of the most competitive pay scales. And unfortunately, as we know, that is not the case. As board members, I know that you've heard all the statistics, all the data already. And I know that there's a committee to investigate ways to retain teachers through non-monetary means, and that is great. And good things can and have come from that. However, the bottom line is that teachers will continue to feel devalued until they are paid more closely, that it matches the responsibilities that they are expected to perform. Giving teachers the raises that they are due must be the financial priority of the school district. Until that happens, no amount of bonuses, perks, PTSA lunches, or principal pep talks are going to make a difference. The board is making a statement about what is most important with the financial decisions that you make. And unfortunately, you are saying teachers make enough. And until teachers are paid what they deserve, the board is saying teachers are not as valued as other initiatives. And as a result, teacher morale continues to decline. Teachers will leave the field or move to places where they and their salaries are a priority. I am pleading with you, all right, to do the right thing. Make the hard decisions. We have no one to advocate for us except you all. This is it. This is what we have. Please do whatever it takes to ensure that the backbone of this system gets what they deserve and need. Please ensure that teacher raises are a priority now. Thank you so much.
Lauren Reardon.
Hello. Hi, thanks for your time. I'm a parent here in the county, so I certainly can't speak with the passion that you just heard. Wow, that was just moving even to hear as a parent here. So anyways, thanks for your time. I'm the mom of a first grader here. I've also lived here for 35 years, and I'm a South Oldham grad. So definitely just feel a lot of connection to our community and our school community as well. So I'm just here speaking in support of the request that you've heard from our teachers to increase their raises. I know some points have already been made that in the last couple of years, I believe since 2016, taxes have been raised more than once, yet the pay scale has remained the same. I think historically when teachers have asked for raises, the argument's always made that, well, if we're going to increase your raises, we're going to have to increase taxes. But taxes have gone up twice without a raise increase. So, I would have that question. It looks like the average step increase for teachers with 10 plus years experience is just 1%. Inflation kind of hovered around 1 to 2% for a while, but as we all well know, is currently more like 7%. So I think, as someone has already pointed out, our teachers are essentially getting paid less for doing the same work. Finally, I have a second request I don't think hasn't come up yet. I'd like the board to consider eliminating or decreasing the tuition payments from teachers. We have some teachers who live out of district, but for a lot of reasons would like their kids to attend Oldham County schools. I think logistically that can be easier for them, especially if it's a single-parent household. Just looking at the annual financial report, it looks like teachers have to pay $3,000 per child for each child they have attending here. Again, just looking at the report, it looks like that's about 55 students, so a fraction of a percent of the budget. I feel like we can find the money for that. I think, again, historically, the argument's been made that if we do away with tuition payments, the number of out-of-district students attending will increase and it'll become unsustainable. Then, I mean, let's find a common ground. Can we cap it? Can the tuition payments be reduced? Can we make it a retention perk? You work here 3 years, tuition payments go away. I don't know. Can we find some kind of move towards decreasing or eliminating the tuition payments? And then finally, I know, again, this isn't a Q&A, so just some questions I hope the board might address in the future. But in terms of recruitment and retention, you know, what is the board doing to continue to attract great teachers and staff? I know a lot, I'm sure a lot. I just, you know, would like to hear more about it. I know at one point, I think a third of our elementary schools this year were without a principal, including my own school now. And I know there are lots of different reasons why people move on, but we've also lost a significant number of teachers to JCPS this year as well. So would love to hear what the board is doing. What's our plan to come up with some new solutions to address these problems, hopefully with raises being the first answer. Thank you.
Katie Buman.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I've spent half of my teaching career in Oldham and am a graduate of this district. Therefore, I have invested a majority of my life into Oldham County Schools. In reviewing the 4 board goals listed on the OC website, it is clear that student testing is the priority, considering the goals are reading, math, closing the gap, and technology implementation. While I support these goals, I was disappointed to not see a board goal addressing your support of all Oldham County school staff. Every staff member in the district plays a vital role in the success of our students. Those 4 goals would not be possible without each and every staff member being present every day. Our school staff is the reason we can open our doors and welcome students inside. I am here today to ask that going forward, supporting school staff needs to be a priority of this board, and it needs to be publicly listed as such. Along with salary increases, the staff leave policy is one way you can show support and valuing of staff. Our leave policy is not flexible for the current world in which we live and work. Currently, we are allotted 10 sick days, 2 emergency, and 3 personal days. This totals 15 days. A teacher can only use emergency days under specific guidelines, and personal days must be requested and approved prior to an absence. As addressed with the Retention and Recruitment Committee, the team has proposed recategorizing our leave as 15 flex days. I urge you to adopt their proposal. Please grant us the professional courtesy to trust us to use our days wisely and responsibly. Additionally, the R&R Committee has questioned 5050.11, the board policy addressing 6-day donation. In the last 2 years, many employees have had to use their sick leave days to cover multiple quarantine periods, either for ourselves or our children. While we may not have been present in the building, we were still working hard behind our screens. This means that many staff members have depleted or are close to depleting their leave because of this past year, which disproportionately impacts young teachers who are new to the profession and parents with young children who are not old enough to stay home by themselves. I am one of those that has 0 days left. This meant that my last absence to stay home with my sick 3-year-old was unpaid. That one unpaid day deducted $278 from my paycheck, costing me 2 weeks worth of grocery money for my family. I had a colleague who was willing to donate one of her sick days to help cover me, but it was denied because board policy states that in order to receive a donated day, I must have been absent for 10 consecutive days. I know I am not the only one that has had this issue. There are stories like this all around our district. sick day donation needs to be modified immediately. We need this board to make all staff a top priority through raises and leave policies. And the board goals, policies, and decisions needed to be updated to be reflective of that. Thank you.
Michael Sharp.
Board of Education, Dr. Radford. My name is Mike Sharp. I've had the privilege of teaching in Oldham County for over a decade. Love the opportunity to work with the students and the staff, the administration that I've had the joy of working with for over a decade. I join my colleagues tonight asking for the greatest consideration for a recurring consideration of a raise. This kind of investment, and that's exactly what it is. It is an investment not only in the present, but in the future. And that kind of investment of nothing less than what's been asked for already tonight, 6% or more. The living, spendable dollars that I started out with over a decade ago is less today because of the flatlining. Even with STEP, which equates 1%, the cost of living has gone up. We've all had to deal with it. I, like many of my other colleagues, have not addressed this issue. For me to be able to stay in Oldham County, my entire tenure in this district, I have worked a separate job, a second job, and even a third job to be able to have the joy of teaching in this district. But that stress is getting far too great. I'm not alone. And I am a highly qualified individual. I have gone to school. I'm committed and I'm invested in this district and to my students. And I want nothing more than to see the great reputation of this district continue. But the stress is getting so great upon people like me that we have to look elsewhere if this investment that's being asked for is not met now. Not looked into, not studied. I've seen and heard about studies again and again and again. The bottom line is we're not where we need to be. And I think you know that. No one needs to tell you. It's a matter of not looking and studying anymore. And Dr. Radford, I know you're new, and I appreciate your leadership and your commitment to have gone to Frankfort, and your record shows and tells me that you want what's best for this district. Bottom line is, the time is now. The time of waiting, the assignment of taking care of this district with these great families includes taking care of great teachers. And that assignment is due now. It's due now. We need you to stand up and work for us, to make that investment now. I can't plead any more than that. I appreciate all that you've done. You've given me great resources, great tools to use in teaching students. I need you to invest in me, my son, my ability to stay here. Because if you don't make such an investment, I and many others will be forced to make a decision that I've seen sadly become a trend, and that is away from this district, not into this district. Love this district. I want to stay here. Please make it possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our public expression. Dr. Radford?
Teachers and staff, just thank you for being here. Some of you have had the pleasure of being able to meet with and speak with, and really our board, I know, recognizes, and so do I, the importance of taking care of our staff and our teachers. Also, just really add, that's why we really tried to do everything that we can to ring the bell with what's happening in Frankfort for state budget purposes, because we need increased, we also as a school district, every school district does, but I know in Oldham County, that we need increased revenue. And you all have said that, which also tells me that you all are really not only advocating, reading, paying attention, and reaching out. When we talk about full day K, codifying that, making that permanent, increasing SEEK funds, and also fully funding transportation. So more to come with what's happening in Frankfurt. We're tracking that very closely, and we will work, and we have been, and will continue. It is something that's very, very important, I know, to our Board of Education and to myself and to our district, our school leaders. So please know that your voices are heard tonight, and thank you for being here.
Okay, Superintendent Report number 1.
I should keep the mic closer. All right, so Superintendent Report 1, that's consider policy revisions. I'd like to invite Ms. Corson, our General Counsel, to come forward and share with the board. And certainly teachers and staff, if you'd like to exit, that's not a problem at all. Please be safe going home. Thank you.
So this month we have 2 policies on for a first read. They are both from the 1000 series. The first one is policy 1020, and it is a public expression policy and how we conduct public expression. The only change would be to limit the overall number of, or a length of time to 45 minutes. The board still has the discretion to give each individual speaker 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever you all decide. The second policy is regarding board member expenses. The board members have asked that we clarify that board members can be reimbursed for their actual and necessary expenses while conducting board business. And that is made clear in the amendment to the policy.
Any questions? Please review these for next month. We'll be voting on them. Superintendent Report number 2.
Yes, just like to share with the board in your packet is the Superintendent IOP, which is really a requirement, and share with the board an update each month. It's there for review. I'll point your attention to Standard 6 or Standard 7. That's influential leadership. It's something we've worked really hard, which really emphasizes what we've heard tonight and what's happening in the General Assembly and advocating for our school district for increased revenue. So the other thing I would just really emphasize is, again, also human resources. That's our staff. As you've heard tonight, our teachers and our staff are really the heart of what we do for our kids, which is why all of us are here. So that's there for your review.
Okay, well, enclosure number 8 is the action item on policy. Approval of policy revision on attendance policy. Any questions? Recommendation?
I recommend to approve.
Is there a motion to approve? Mrs. Hunley, second by Mr. Kehoe. All in favor? That's 4-0. Second, closure I, board meetings. Is there any questions on this?
Table this if possible.
Table it? Okay.
Maybe if the board wants to have if there's any discussion there or from the board. And Ms. Corson, just a quick question. If our board wanted to table action item I, they would need to make a process for that. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve this? No motion, so we'll table this till next month. Okay. School calendar. Have y'all had time to look at this?
Preschool calendars first.
Oh, preschool, that's right, I'm sorry. Bear with me a second. Get the wrong one. Preschool calendar, y'all have time to review it.
Yeah.
Any questions? Your recommendation, Superintendent?
Recommend to approve.
Motion, Mr. Kehoe first, Mrs. Nykerk second, all in favor? It's 4-0. Okay. 22-23 school calendar. Y'all had a chance to look at this. Your recommendation, Superintendent?
Recommend to approve.
Motion to approve, Ms. Nykirk. Mr. Kehoe, all in favor? That'd be 4-0. Let's see. Graduation dates. Y'all had a chance to look at this.
No, major breaks. Oh, never mind, sorry, no. Yes. Graduation.
Any questions? Your recommendation, Superintendent?
Yeah, recommend to approve.
Ms. Nykirk first. Mr. Kehoe second. All in favor? That's 4-0.
That's Saturday, May 28th, for everybody waiting at home and in the room. North Oldham High School at 10 a.m., South Oldham High School at 1:30 p.m., Oldham County High School at 5 p.m. Buckner Alternative High School will be the Friday before that, May 27th at 7 p.m., and that will be at the Art Center.
Let's see, where we at? Graduation dates. We're going to do away with M.
Yes.
Closure N. Okay, waiver of a semester, can't read it. Waiver of an 8 semester requirement. Any questions about that? Recommendation.
Recommend to approve.
Well, who gave first? Ms. Nykirk, Ms. Hunley second, all in favor? 4-0. Okay. There are some information items on the preschool for you to look at and energy usage. We now need to go in executive session. Anyone would like to read that, or you want me to?
Oh, I will.
Okay.
At this time, we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss the following matters: 2 litigation matters pertaining to student injuries, 1 special education matter, 2 employment claims matters, and a Title IX complaint. The board needs to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101C to discuss litigation preparation, the public disclosure of which would jeopardize the board's position.
Is there a motion to go in executive session? Ms. Nykirk, second by Mr. Kehoe, all in favor? 4-0. Go on executive.